Hello, welcome to Kalamari's tutorial. Today in this session, we will see about constructors in C++. So this constructor is a special member function whose task is to initialize the objects of its class. So here, initializing the objects means initializing the values of, that is initializing the values of data members of that particular class. So it is also called automatic initialization of objects. Why we are calling like automatic initialization is, so even though if you are not declaring the constructor explicitly in the class, immediately after the creation of the object, this constructor is invoked. So that we call this constructor as an automatic initialization of an object. So its name is same as its class name. So in the class, in the example, we will see how we are defining this constructor. So it will be holding the name of the class name itself. The constructor is invoked whenever an object of its associated class is created. It is called a constructor because it constructs the value of data members of the class. So what we call this as a constructor. So it is also like a member function in the class. So this is an example showing the declaration and the definition of constructor. So this is a class named integer. So inside that we are declaring m and n as an integer. Those two are the data members of this class. So integer void. So I'm declaring this constructor inside the class. See here, integer void. So how we are declaring? We are declaring the constructor as like the any other member function in the class. The function name is going to be same as that of the class. So here class name is integer, so here constructor name is also integer. So inside this constructor, we are initializing the data member. See here, for m I'm initializing the value was 0 and for n I'm initializing the value was 0. So this is what we call it to be the constructor declaration and the definition part. So this is how we can declare the constructor inside the any other program. So here integer is a class name followed by the object name. Into one is the object name which we are creating. So here this constructor may not be invoked explicitly as like the any other member function of the class. So usually what we will do, using the object of the class and the dot operator, I'll be invoking the member functions of the class, isn't it? But here we will not do that explicitly. This constructor will be automatically called immediately after this statement gets executed. So these are all the various characteristics of constructor. They should be declared in the public section. They are invoked automatically when the objects are created. They do not have return type. They cannot be inherited. They can have default arguments. They cannot be virtual. Its address cannot be referred. An object with a constructor cannot be used as a member of union is required. So this constructor is going to implicitly call this new and delete function. So this new is going to help you in allocating the memory of the particular object. Again, delete is going to release the memory, right? So these two are going to be called implicitly with the help of the constructor. So next we shall see what are the types of constructor present. First one is default constructor, next is parameterized constructor, and another one is copy constructor. So default constructor, how may I define it and declare it? Simply I'll give the class name followed by the parenthesis, again flower brace, close it, that's it. So I may not initialize any values inside it. This is what we call it to be the default constructor. Parameterized, I may pass parameters or arguments to my constructor. Copy constructors, I may send the address of the object of the same class as an argument to the constructor. This is what we call it to be the copy constructor. So we shall see detailedly about every constructors one by one. First is a default constructor. See here in the previous example, we have seen integer I1. So we are creating an object, right? I told you, right? Immediately after the creation of this, the constructor will be invoked. But in the previous case, I haven't passed any arguments or values into the particular constructor, right? Simply I'm giving the value as void. So what does it mean? So I will not assign any values and the data members of the particular object will be assigned with value 0, and this we call it to be the default constructor. The constructor that accepts no parameter is called default constructor. So if suppose we are not declaring and defining it explicitly, the compiler supplies its own default constructor. So next is the parameterized constructor. So to the constructor we will be passing parameters. See here in this example. So integer is a constructor. So to that I am passing x and y as a parameter to it. So I am defining outside. So as usual, if suppose we are defining the function outside the class, we'll be using scope resolution operator. As like same procedure also here also we'll be using scope resolution operator. Class name, scope resolution operator followed by the constructor name. Pass the arguments or the parameters. Again, I will be passing two values and those values will be assigned for the variables m and n. So the constructor that can take arguments are called a parameterized constructor. So here this integer int x comma int y is the parameterized one. So here I am creating an object like int1, but this statement is not going to work here. This is like default constructor, right? Here I am not passing any values into it. So in order to call the constructor, so here if this statement is getting executed, only the object will be created and not the constructor will be invoked. Okay, since I'm passing the parameters, but I haven't passed any values over here, right? So how may I pass? Pass in two ways. I may call the constructor implicitly or explicitly. If at all I want to call the constructor implicitly, I'll pass the values here itself while declaring the object like integer int1 0 comma 100. So what implicitly calling the constructor. So this 0 will be assigned to x variable and 100 will be assigned to y, and in turn passed, and in turn this x value will be assigned to m and y value will be assigned to n. So if at all if this is going to be the explicit call, how will I make it? Again same thing, integer int1 creation of object equal to integer 0 comma 100. So I am passing the values over here. So this is how we can call the constructor explicit. Next is the parameterized constructor example. Same thing, whatever we have seen now, this simple example, same thing it is getting repeated here. So see here, I'm passing two arguments, constructor at the declaration part. Here I'm defining two values like x and y. I'm defining it outside the class, correct? So to this, I'm passing two values and I'm calling it implicitly. Here again, for explicit call, again I'm creating another object and I'm sending the values to it like 25 comma 75. Okay, so in order to show you the execution of this calling, two different objects are created. Fine. So integer int1 0 comma 100, even that statement can be replaced like integer int1 equal to integer of 0 comma 100. Both are same. Either we can say pass values implicitly or explicitly for calling the constructor. Next is the copy constructor. So as I told earlier, constructor is going to accept the reference of an object, correct, of the same class. See here class A is the class name. See here constructor name A we have declared. So inside that we are passing the reference A ampersand. So what is the meaning of the address of that particular object? So again copy constructor is goes to declare and initialize an object from another. So integer I2, I'm passing I1. I1 is the object name. Either I may do the initialization there like that, or else I may use the statement like integer I2 equal to I1. So here what happens? This I2 is defined, or I'm creating an object I2 and also I am initializing the values of I2 with I1. So this initialization process we call it to be the copy initialization. So we'll see one example. See here copy constructor code is the class name. So again this will be the constructor name, right? So again I'm passing that code. Class name I'm passing ampersand followed by a variable. So here I'm passing the object. So that object value will be carried to this x by a variable, and in turn this x dot id. So id value will be already assigned, right? So that value will be taken and read and it will be stored in id through the dot operator x dot id. So this what now. See here code of A. I'm creating an object A and I'm initializing the value with 100. So what will happen here? So immediately the parameter will be The value will be passed to the parameter ID and that value will be assigned, right? This is what is the parameterized constructor. Next, what I'm doing, I'm creating one more object. Now I'm passing this object A as an argument to this object B, right? So this is what is called to be the copy constructor. So I may do in two ways. One is, okay, fine, code C equal to A. I may use the assignment operator also, isn't it? So likewise, I may use the copy constructor. So here what happens, the reference of this object A will be passed to the object B, and object B in turn is going to hold the value of the A. So here both A and B will be holding the same copies, right? So this is what we call it to be the copy constructor. So the reference variable has been used as an argument to the copy constructor, and we will not pass the value to the copy constructor. This is an important key point we'll have to remember. Again, when no copy constructor is defined, if at all we are not defining any copy constructor inside it,